out there. When you get old like me, you get forgetful. And when I was recognizing sponsors to start the day, I left out some very important sponsors, and I apologize. So I want to take this opportunity to thank Avery Hall, D3, Effective, Delmarva Power, M&T Bank, Purdue Farms, SBY Airport, Tidal Health, SBTS Group, The Voice Radio Network, and University of Maryland Eastern Shore. Please join me in thanking them. Great panel, as I said. To my immediate left, Ron Morgan, President, Becker Morgan Group. Next to Ron is Dwight Miller, President, Gillis Gilkerson. And next to Dwight is Rebecca Snyder, the Assistant Branch Manager with Beacon Supply, and they are going to talk about the state of the trades. Gentlemen and lady.
How does this work? Good morning. I'm Ron Morgan, President of Becker Morgan Group here in Salisbury. We have 4 offices as shown on the slide from Newark, Delaware to Dover, Delaware, and Wilmington, North Carolina. A staff of about 105 people as of today. We were about 105 people this time last year. But the interesting thing, that includes 20 new staff. So we've had a lot of attrition. This has been a really difficult time. I've got 2 very recent graduate architects with 6-year degrees who've left the profession to go. One has become a window salesman, another one has become a bartender in Ocean City. So it's been a really challenging time in our profession. A lot of people, I heard the comment about sitting behind the desk. We bought everyone standing desks. That wasn't good enough. They decided they want to work elsewhere anyway. So it's just been a very challenging time, very demanding, very busy time in the last couple of years. Labor has been very difficult for us. We have average staff person works about 50 hours a week or more. I'm 67 years old this year, and working 60 hours a week is really challenging. So if you've got any friends who want to work for an architectural engineering firm that's got 4 offices, we're anxiously accepting applications. The purposes of our discussion today is really focusing on the middle area of that geography. That's the dominance of our work. Those are 2 major offices in those 2 locations. Nationally, the architectural economy is measured on the Architectural Business Index. It's a metric of inquiries and statistics from all the national firms. We all participate in the survey regularly. It's often used by bankers and financiers about the strength of the marketplace. Essentially, that chart shows that if it's above 50%, it's considered a good and growing marketplace. If it's below that, you can see that it's less than that. Back in the end of 2020, it dipped below in the red there. This year has been strong. It continues to ascend, so we see the economy continuing to grow. We practice in lots of different market sectors or practice areas. We refer to them, about a dozen. But we monitor the marketplace on a private-public scale. If it's a private project, or if it's a public project, it's typically governmentally funded, institutional schools, police departments, et cetera, municipal projects. Our firm focuses on what we call vertical construction, architecture, and does a little bit of land development, but not a lot. So we're primarily architects with a strong engineering suite. But over the years, you can see since 2012, the last 10 years or so, the marketplace in our area, our goal has always been to maintain about a 50-50 balance between public and private work. That's created a great strength and sustainability in our profession, because typically when one's strong, one isn't. So 50-50 is a good goal. You can see that relationship there has drifted in recent years and continues to do so. Although the chart finishes there in 2020, I think it's going to continue to go in that direction. It's a little concerning because the private marketplace can be quite volatile depending on the economy. So market sectors for us, public safety is very flat. That's communities spending money on fire departments and police departments, et cetera. Healthcare is very strong. I'm sorry I missed Steve Leonard's comments earlier, but I'm assuming he referenced the lots of good things that Tidal Health is doing through expansion. We have relationships with all the major hospitals in the area, including one in West Virginia, of all things. But healthcare is going through a robust kind of rejuvenation in the marketplace. So we see that's very strong. Education, interestingly, education is soft. There's a lot less interest in public spending and education in recent years. Hopefully that'll change in the near future. Hospitality is very strong. I think there's lots mentioned about Ocean City and the hotel industry there. Residential is very, very strong. That's single family and multifamily. Commercial is strong. Government is weak, again, with the private funds down. There's less money being spent in governmental enterprises. Libraries is another sector we practice. It's a minor sector for us, but its funding has been limited in recent years. Land development is very strong. There's a lot of activity in speculation and increasing the coverage in the area. From an economy standpoint, what really drives us, architects and engineers are really on the leading edge of the economy, but we're also a leading edge in climate change and indicators and such. So from a regulatory standpoint, there's a lot of more legislation and regulation coming with energy codes, environmental design. I'm sure many of you have heard about the LEED standards, which is a goal of the industry to become energy conservative. And then the last there is net zero. There's different communities have adopted a program of trying to become carbon neutral in very short order. So that's a challenge. Again, private very strong, land development strong. The energy sectors, our surveying department has an enormous backlog of solar farms. I don't know whether you've flown over the Eastern Shore recently, but there is an abundance of reflective material all over our landscape. There is a fascination with this area in the solar department. And hospitality, again, very strong. They asked me to speak a little bit about trends. We're seeing a renewed interest in national franchises in the area. The first project there is in Margaritaville in Ocean City, a major project on the boardwalk at 14th Street. The next project in the middle is a renovation of Milford Memorial Hospital. They vacated their hospital a couple of years ago and built a new facility out on Route 1. And this represents a national developer who's come in and rejuvenated that with 15 different, it was 1 million square feet of construction, and they occupied it with different tenants from nursing skill to family practice to all sorts of different, what they're calling a wellness village. So from our perspective, the economy and the building trades is still very strong. It's primarily, as it's always been, along the coast, from Wilmington to Chincoteague along the coast, and about 20 miles inland is where we see the dominance of our work. So, Dwight?
Well, anyway, with or without it, I'm Dwight Miller, president of Gillis Gilkerson. Our contracting company pretty much mirrors, thank you, Ron. Ron's business, ironically, through our almost 40 years, we have literally been across the street from one another at different times. We do follow the same market sectors. However, we primarily stay from Dover down to Cape Charles. We'll go to Queenstown and Ocean City. So we pretty much stay primarily only on the Delmarva Peninsula. Some of the challenges that we're faced with are very similar to Ron's. The regulatory agencies are changing. Codes are constantly changing. The past 2 years has been extremely more difficult with staffing issues and COVID, where people aren't there to review your drawings. They lose drawings, or they're working from home and they can't review your drawings to get a building permit. In the meantime, you have a completion date that you need to meet. Those issues have been very challenging for us. I will say, and agreeing with what Ron has said, the demand is very strong. The issues are the timing, and material prices really are slowing a lot of our larger projects down. Everything's great, gets designed, looks wonderful, and then all of a sudden you get hit with a new sticker shock. And that has been a big challenge that we've had to overcome. One of the other issues is very similar to what the gentleman were talking about earlier in regards to the restaurant business. Labor is very short. A lot of our bids, we deal with a database of over 3,000 vendors that we deal with at any given time, and a lot of them that are typical go-to trade contractors won't bid right now because they're so busy with what few resources they have. They cannot get the qualified laborers to show up for work and to produce a qualified product, and that's very challenging. And I'm hoping that there will be a generational change in that very soon to come. On top of that, though, the waiting times to get stuff here I mean, you've all seen the news with the goods and services, whether you went to Home Depot to get a new refrigerator or whatnot. You know, you tell me which boat that those 12 HVAC units are sitting in that we need to complete a project. We don't even know where they are. We ordered windows for a project on the 6th of April. We didn't get them until October. Those are just windows, guys. You know, for a building that we could typically build from start to finish in 5 months. Now, codes don't let us do a whole lot of things inside unless the outside is all weather tight. So we have to do other provisions to take care of that. You can't finish the exterior until your windows are in. It's been very challenging. That also equates to cost and bottom line. If I've got to be at a job site for 8 months that I typically could do in 5, that's 3 more months of hard costs, of labor costs that we have to endure. It also means when people look at a project, say, well, this should be a 12-month project. We say, no, it's going to be 16 months because we cannot get the materials. And a lot of people don't want to understand that. You order a pre-engineered metal building today, you might not see it until August of next year. The big roofing contractors that I'm talking to, if you want a big section of ISS annuate insulation, you can order today, maybe sometime third quarter next year you might see it. A lot of people have experienced labor prices or lumber prices have come down because the news is saying it's come down. This is soft lumber, but a lot of the lumber that we use is engineered lumber. It requires resins. It requires actual fabrication, actual work in a factory. If people are shown to work at the factories, the resins are not available, therefore the product's not available. And that all slows the whole process down. It's forcing us to be more collaborative with the designers to find other ways to design and other ways to build the products. Now, don't shoot me, I'm just the messenger. I mean, a lot of times, if Anibon was up here talking about some of these graphs I'm about to show you, everybody'd be happy. You know, all these prices going up, great. Well, that's not the case for our industry. Now, the lumber is starting to spike up a little bit, but again, this is just softwoods. This is not, I was not able to find a graph on the engineered products. And keep in mind, engineered wood goes into a lot of these doors you see here. These are all resin cord insulated doors. It's not just a solid slab of wood. So it takes a lot more to go into it. Ready mix concrete. That's great if you're in a concrete business, not if you're the end user. Gypsum board. And on top of this graph, yesterday, and these are manufacturer's letters, I get a letter from CertainTeed and from USG, starting in January, a 30% increase in drywall. 30%. Somebody's going to have to pay for that. And unfortunately, the realtors, the users, I mean, the prices of the final products are going to have to go up because you just can't afford it. Steel. It's great if you're in the steel business. You know, whether or not the changes in the tariffs will have any change in that, I don't know. I really hope that they'll get more people in American factories to start producing steel at a faster rate. This was just across the board of different materials. So you got steel at 80%, building materials above 50%, asphalt 50%, plastic water pipe. I mean, you think a lot of those things are petroleum based. You don't think about them, but that plastic, whether it's a vinyl product in a window, or it's PVC going into your hot and cold water piping, or your asphalt that goes down in your plant. These are the past 3 months. Still, things are still climbing at rates that we have constant contact and communications with a lot of our clients. Where, how come, you know, you budgeted this for me 6 months ago? Why is it up? Well, you haven't read the news. I mean, come on. I mean, you know, it's what it is. It's an unfortunate situation, and because when you're getting letters from manufacturers, it's not even the people that are selling them to you. You don't have a way to control that market. Other average changes in prices. I mean, we are starting to see some level of stagnation, but we're not seeing the resales, the comps, the information that a developer would need to know or to have to make some of these projects more viable. And again, which truck's got that HVAC unit you're looking for, or your refrigerator that you were looking for, or whatever product that you need? We don't know where a lot of those products are. That is starting to lighten up some, but it is still extremely challenging for the construction industry. So we have material issues, we have labor issues, but the good news is, you know, we're all in this together, and we are very optimistic about the future because there is a large demand. Thank you.
I'm Rebecca Snyder. I am new to Beacon, but as the assistant manager, taking over as the manager position in January, so I'm excited about that. I am going to probably build a lot on Dwight here. We have a lot of the same slides. I promise we didn't work together. A lot of people call me Becky. 200 of my closest friends in this room can do so as well, so that's great. I always like to start off with a quote. This one kind of, I know it's cheesy, call me cheesy, but this one actually struck pretty well to what's going on. Let me put my glasses on so I can see here. You have to be ready for the peaks and the valleys, the wins and the losses, but you also have to keep your mind nimble and ready to react to the unexpected. There is always something ready to roll over the horizon. It could be clear skies or stormy weather, but you have to be ready either way. That's from T.J. Jackson. So back in February of 2020, a full month before the World Health Organization declared COVID a global pandemic, Panos Calvis, director of the Boeing Center for Supply Chain Innovation at Washington University in St. Louis, predicted that the coronavirus would wreak havoc on the global supply chain for at least 2 years. Isn't that the truth? So we're going to talk a little bit about supply and inflation. First, I want to talk about some supply issues. First came the growth of goods and the growth of the trades. Lockdowns around the world, of course, caused many people to shift their spending from services to goods. People were spending lots of time at home and began to complete those projects that they never had time for before. Along with the remodels and the additions, the Eastern Shore, of course, as we all know, is still one of the hot growth areas and relocation areas, which means lots and lots of building, which sounds like great news for all of us, right? Well, it would be if the demand shift didn't create such an imbalance in the economy. With heightened demand and limited supply, we were and still are left with many challenges, which include lead times, price increases, and product shortages. So let's talk about the labor force. It's a challenge for all of us. With the entire generation of workers nearing retirement, younger workers who are entering the manufacturing field are limited and largely untrained. A pressing issue for many of our manufacturers is how to attract and retain those workers after investing the time and money to train them. The effects of COVID have been catastrophic, as we all know, on the workforce. The manufacturing field lost some 600,000 from their workforce. Think about that, 600,000 people gone after COVID hit. The construction industry lost over 150,000 workers. We went from, manufacturing fields of sitting right next to each other to, social distancing. We could reduce by, instead of 1,000 people, you could only have 200 people. So that has definitely caused a lot of issues in manufacturing. So after the lockdown ended, some workers still felt unsafe, didn't return to their jobs. Others made more money by staying at home. Most employers raised starting wages to attract workers, but with so many businesses hiring, it became an employee market versus an employer market, of course. Employers couldn't staff properly to keep up with demand, which in turn slowed the entire supply chain. So the U.S. ports. As most of you already know, there are several links in the supply chain. Each link in the chain is contributing to the backup. The ships are anchored for days, even weeks, waiting to dock in order to unload. The reason for the delay in docking and unloading is varied and very complex. There are COVID-related labor shortages, cargo surges due to increased demand, shortages in equipment, and storage gridlock. We also have rail and trucking. The rail backup is due to 4 factors: increase in containers arriving at ports, rail car shortages, labor shortages, the employees that have to unload all of those, and weather. The problems began back in February when terminals in New York and New Jersey were closed for 5 days because of weather conditions. Believe it or not, 5 days of closures causes massive chaos. The American Trucking Association estimates that in 2021, the truck driver shortage hit a historic high of over 80,000 drivers. This figure is the difference between the number of drivers currently in the market and the optimal number of drivers based on the freight demand. Containers are buried in enormous stacks in clogged terminal yards. Trucks wait in line for hours, 8 to 9 hours to pick up one single container. For every container picked up, there are 8 waiting to be loaded per truck. So that's a lot. Customers throughout the country are experiencing shipment delays lasting weeks, if not months, like Dwight said. The congestion and bottlenecks are a real thing, and it's causing a lot of issues with every industry, not just the building industry, it's kind of like it rolls downhill, I guess you could say, but we're all up and down the hill. So now we're going to talk about inflation. Crazy. Price increases. The red bar on the graph shows the impact to the residential construction. Despite significant drops in frame and lumber prices in the recent months, overall building materials have increased, on average, a 19.4%, just on average. This is the same slide me and Dwight here picked together. These are the materials that have seen some of the biggest impacts. Since the start of COVID, labor inflation averaged 171%, with lead times averaging 3 months. And coil nail inflation was above 80%, with lead times up to 9 months. As you can see, all the building materials have increased significantly. At Beacon, in the third and fourth quarters alone, we have received price increases from nearly every vendor. Here are just some of them. These are real vendor letters with real price increases and lead times. Some of them are, 30%. Some of them are, the lowest I think we've seen is probably a 7%, but most of them are upwards of, 10 to 15. It's a real thing, which, of course, like Dwight said, has to be passed on to somewhere. So the new reality of the increasing prices and lead times, as well as, it's definitely not the best news for us, but as they say in the entertainment business, the show must go on, so here we are. So here are some tips that may help mitigate some of these issues. Prepare. Start the order process sooner. As soon as that contract is signed by the customer, get your order in. Don't wait. There is no reason to, I can wait, I've got 6 months to order that. It's going to take at least that to get in. Know what you need and how much. If you feel like you need this much, order extra, because if you run out, you're going to wait another 9 months to get the rest in. Know the lead times and prepare your customer. Be flexible. Understand where there will be delays and where what products are going to be delayed more than others. Be willing to choose a product that is similar if it's more readily available. So if your customer wants that custom red siding on their house, let them know it's going to be probably 12 months before they get it. If they choose the blue, they're going to get it in 3. So kind of work with your customer, communicate with your customer. That's huge. Know what products are available, like I said, and ask your supplier for alternatives if they're not in stock. Always ask, okay, well, if you don't have this, what do you have? Because we can always shift, different manufacturers, different products. We used to get, or across the board, certain products like a siding for homes. We used to get 2 trucks a week. We're getting 2 trucks a month now. That's a huge issue when the building is so large in this area and so much demand. It's hard. With Beacon, it's nice because we are a company that is spread across the United States, so we can share our products back and forth. We have a lot of LTLs, but again, LTLs, the trucker shortage. So it's just continuous. Communication is key. Always communicate. Make sure that you let your customer know so everyone's on the same page. I'm sure we can agree that the past 2 years has been more than challenging. All of us may stay positive, try to anyway, and work the problems as we now face to innovate new solutions. Hopefully there are clear skies in our future. The director of the Boeing Center also said, we're hoping that within the first 6 months of 2022, the port situation efforts to increase capacity, both on the railroad and trucking, will improve substantially. If that happens and the demand on the system lessens, things will look better by summer. So let's hope so. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. We have time for questions. Questions? Raise your hand, please.
We mentioned some of the problems that's holding up these supply chains, and Dwight had one of the biggest ones that I've seen. We just touched on it very briefly when he was talking about the increased regulations. Our regulations concerning the trucking industry are going up every year. And these regulations are putting a lot of the independent drivers out of business. They'll do things like shorten the length of the time they can own their trucks. They will put more licensings on them. So that's kind of like the federal government that's doing that, but it's our elected officials that should be taking care of these areas. Locally, just in our electrical areas, our electricians in the counties, their licensings has gone through a nightmare. Everything's now being held at the state level instead of the local level. Sussex County in Delaware, I believe, now demanding a $500 business license for any craftsman. And that's a lot of money just for a small company to absorb just like that. And again, it gets back to the regulations. We've got to stop regulating these people out of business, and it's up to our elected officials to do that.
That was a question.
Well, on the trucking side, Kiplinger's letter came out last week, and they're already saying that they're adding $1 a mile for the truckers. Somebody's going to have to eat that. And you're right, we can't even get a building permit in Sussex County without giving them a full list of all the trades that are going to be working here to make sure every one of those tradesmen have their adequate licensing. You're correct.
This is a question for Dwight. You and I have had a couple of conversations over the last year or so about the increases in the cost to build stuff, and I guess about a year and a half ago, office warehouse was probably around 115-ish per square foot to come out of the dirt. Now we're pushing past 150, 160, whatever it's going to be. In looking at a lot of these price increases and looking at the demand and the fact that there really hasn't been a tremendous amount of infrastructure built into places like the Northwood Industrial Park over the last 20 or 30 years, and you're almost out of space in some sectors there. Do you see the current price increases in both materials and labor persisting beyond the next year or two? Because obviously people are looking at this as driven by COVID, and they're thinking, well, if COVID goes away, do the prices go down? I don't see that happening. Just like to know your opinion of that.
Yeah, that's the unique thing about our business. We constantly get notifications of ones going up. We very seldom get anybody tells us the prices are coming down. The market's going to have to dictate a lot of that, Chris. When I look back over the past, say, 20 years prior to 2019, we went through several different economic upturns and downturns. But overall, that $105 to $115 a foot range for the product you were talking about was pretty flat. So just basic economics will tell you that needed to go up anyway. But to the extent that it has done, I don't think that's correct. We're all getting, I don't care what industry you're in, you're getting a good dose in education on supply-side economics. So can it go any higher? I certainly hope it doesn't, because I am seeing a lot of projects that we are budgeting that the end user, it's not affordable, even if you are the adequate end user. You're building your house, can you afford $200 a square foot? Am I going to be able to sell it for $200 a square foot when I get out from it? A developer, if they can't get but $10 or $12 a square foot net, that's going to dictate what they either put more money into the project or they lengthen their their return ratio. How are they going to make that work? But I'm hoping that we're about at the peak, Chris. Changes in fuel, that alone could be an upheaval on the market, because fuel is so. You think just oil, well, it's just what you put in your vehicles. Well, no, because that oil also goes into a lot of other building products. And you talk about infrastructure, that's your pipes underground. I mean, all those black stormwater management pipes. To order an ADS pipe right now, you better be waiting to about 4.5, 5 months. We had to just recently change in a project to go from the plastic pipe to reinforced concrete pipe just to get it in a timely fashion.
I have a quick one for you, Ron. So the kind of environment we're in now usually causes innovation. In your business, as well as for Dwight and Rebecca, what trends do you see possibly coming down the line to combat some of these material price increases with innovation in construction materials?
Interestingly, we're designing some buildings backwards. We're starting with what materials do we have available and figure out how to make a building from there. I can refer back to Salisbury School, the upper school Dwight and I worked on together. Make a very long story short, the prime architect was a New York architect, very creative, world-renowned. We looked at everything from a log cabin construction to concrete block to vinyl siding. The salt dome, that's the main library there, was the cheapest form of structure that could be built to enclose volume space. So he was able to use a component strategy of different materials in creative ways to create a unique project. I think if those of you are familiar with the building, it's a very unique building. But that was built very affordably, $103 a square foot, as I recall. It's been 10 years or so ago.
20.
Has it been 20?
25,
okay.
actually.
But we're just looking at things differently, and it's nothing's normal anymore. Everything's unique. And honestly, the cost of construction here on this Eastern Shore, the oval that I circled there, is as high as anywhere we practice. I think there's a popular misconception that construction can be cheap here. It's just not. Everything's trucked in. There's no inventory. Availability of quality contractors is diminished. There's not an abundance of competition. And so, and I pride myself as an Eastern Shoreman. We're really pretty strong-willed and unwilling to work for nothing. So that keeps a robust labor economy. So I do work outside that bubble, and clients and contractors are always surprised when they come into that bubble how expensive things are. House construction in North Carolina in some cases is half what it costs us here. It's staggering when you see it. And notwithstanding, much like this gentleman mentioned, the regulatory environment here in Maryland especially is obscene, and that adds so much cost to construction.
And on my side of things, we are looking for new vendors daily. We're meeting weekly with possible new vendors. So we're looking for two different things. We're looking for lead times, and then we're looking for cost. And most of the time, those two don't fit together. So we're giving our customers options of, you can have your lead time, which you're probably going to pay a little bit more money for, or you can have the lower cost, which you're going to have a longer lead time. So we're constantly battling. We're offering different options on, if you were going to do a whole house in Cedar Shake, let's do, the peaks and, the eaves and, that kind of thing in shakes versus, the whole house. And let's do some of it in the siding that we have available. So that's what we're doing on our end.
Dwight, comment?
We're being as innovative as we can, but sometimes, we feel like our legs are tied together trying to run a marathon, because when we get prices from different vendors, whether it be suppliers or a full trade contractor, prices are good for maybe 30 days. A lot of them are 7. And when we put forth a proposal, a lot of times our proposal has to be open for 60, 90, 120 days. So by the time we even get the contract back, we take the gamble of up to half of our basis of our pricing. They may not be good anymore.
Other questions? Oh, over there.
It's not a question as much as an announcement. Every one of you who just talked about overregulation, I expect you're going to be in here this afternoon when we have the legislative delegation up there and we can make our points to the people who can make a difference. So I hope that this room is full this afternoon, as full as it is right now.
Thank you, candidate Riddell. There we go. Question.
Not really a question, but an observation. And so in that, it makes all the existing improvements that much more valuable, right?
Yes.
Ones that are here as opposed to building new construction.
Good point. Time for Mary.
I think mine is more of a comment. Throughout, I've heard folks talk about not enough staff or laborers to do the many jobs that are available. And I just want to mention something that, and also commend Dr. Leonard of Tidal Health, his approach, and just grow your own. It used to be years ago, there were different programs and whatever out there, I call them programs, wherein you got a stipend and was trained at the same time. And that's how we grew our own back then, back in the 60s or whatever. We need to bring that back. Dr. Leonard's approach is a great one, and I really encourage others to do the same thing. And that would help us in economics and unemployment and all of that. Thank you for listening.
We do that with the Workforce Alliance, and we've done it with Salisbury University and UMES doing internships. The issue at hand is a lot of times people come into our industry and they realize what is necessary and they don't want to work.
I know you're hungry. Oh, here we go. Make it quick, Shauna. No pontificating.
It's very quick, and it's for Rebecca, and it's a little bit awkward. Well, because I just don't really know what I'm saying right now, but are you speaking to Randy Day at Purdue about the trucks that are going out of commission, and then speaking with Dr. Hoy about a CDL program, spinning the innovation around to provide yourself with your own vendors to truck your freight back and forth?
No, but that is a great idea. Absolutely. I love it. We hire out because our company doesn't, we have our own delivery drivers, but we don't have our own trucking company, I guess you could say. So our delivery drivers are still scarce here and there. They're hard, you know, they're getting so many wage increases and so many offers because of the shortage of truckers that it is hard to keep them. You have to increase your pay, you know, your pay wages, which in turn, of course, the cost has to roll somewhere. So, of course, just like the $21 cheeseburger we talked about earlier, you know, hopefully that's not going to be the case with building materials, but it seems to be the trend right now. But
How about a big round of applause for Ron, Dwight, and Rebecca? Thank you all.